All right, let's pull back the curtain on something we all do, online shopping. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of how these websites actually work. You know, what really happens when you click Add to Cart, and how your computer talks to the website server to make it all happen.
I mean, think about it. You see something you like, you click a button, and poof, it's in your cart. It feels like magic, right? But it's not. It's actually this really cool, carefully choreographed dance of data. And today, we're going to learn the steps to that dance. So let's zoom out and look at the big picture.
So to make this all super clear and not just a bunch of theory, we're going to walk through a real-world example. This is the Nine Cards Commerce project. It's a full-stack app, and it's pretty much a perfect case study for seeing how these things are built from scratch.
Okay, so here's the basic layout. On one side, you've got your web browser. That's you clicking around. When you do something, your browser sends a message or a request over to the Node.js server. You can think of the server as the brains of the whole operation. It figures out what you want, then it talks to the MongoDB database, which is like the system's long-term memory. It's where all the products and orders are stored. Seems simple enough, right? But the real magic, the secret sauce, is in how they all talk to each other.
And that brings us to the core question, really. How does your click, your intention to see an order or add something to your cart, get translated into a language the server can actually understand and do something about? Well, it all boils down to two main ways they communicate.
Okay, so there are basically two types of conversations happening. First, you've got GET requests. Think of this as just window shopping. You're just asking for information, just looking around. Then you have POST requests. This is when you're actually doing something, like adding an item to your cart. You're sending information to change things. So let's dive into that first path, the window shopping part.
All right, path 1, window shopping with GET. So, like we said, this is all about just looking at stuff that's already there. A classic example? You just bought something and you click the link to see your order confirmation. How in the world does the website know which one of the thousands of orders is yours?
Well, your browser ends up at a URL that looks something like this. And you see that long, kind of random-looking string of letters and numbers at the end? That's not junk. That is the unique ID for your specific order baked right into the address itself. We call that a URL parameter.
So how does the server actually grab that ID out of the URL? It's pretty clever, actually. In the code, the developer sets up a kind of template for the URL with a placeholder, in this case a colon followed by ID. It's like setting a trap. So when your request hits that URL, Express just plucks that value right out of the address and tucks it away in a handy little variable. And just like that, the server knows exactly which order to go find in the database. Pretty neat, huh?
Okay, so that's GET requests for just looking around. But what about when we want to stop window shopping and actually buy something? You know, add an item to the cart. That's a whole different ballgame. That's where POST requests come in.
So when you hit that Add to Cart button, all that info, like what product it is, how many you want, it gets bundled up into a digital package and sent to the server. But here's the catch. By default, the server has no idea how to open that package. It's like getting a locked box in the mail with no key. The data's in there, but it's totally useless.
The key to that locked box? It's this one single, absolutely critical line of code. This little piece of code is what we call middleware. You can think of it like a universal translator or a skeleton key. It basically teaches the server how to open that package, read the data inside, and organize it neatly for us. It's the thing that unlocks all that form data.
And let me tell you, forgetting to add this one line is a classic mistake. It's like a rite of passage for new developers. You spend hours debugging, wondering why your form data is just gone. It's not there. And it's all because this one line is missing. It's one of those gotchas that you'll never forget once you've run into it.
All right, so we've browsed, we've filled our cart. Now it's time for the main event, the climax of the whole journey, a secure checkout. This is the moment where everything has to be perfect, because this is where security is not just important, it's everything.
So, let's get one thing straight. This is probably the #1 golden, unbreakable rule of e-commerce development. You never trust the total price that the customer's browser sends you. Ever. And you're probably asking, why not?
Because it is shockingly easy for someone with just a little bit of technical know-how to pop open their browser's developer tools and just change the numbers. Seriously. They could take a $200 order, change the total to $2, hit submit, and if your server is naive enough to trust that number, you just lost a whole lot of money.
So the only way to do this securely follows a simple rule. The server is the one and only source of truth. When you hit checkout, the server basically throws away any total price your browser sent. It doesn't trust it. Instead, it goes back to the database itself, pulls the real prices for the items in your cart, calculates the subtotal, adds the right taxes, adds shipping, and only then does it create the final official order. It does all the math itself.
Yeah, this whole idea is that all the really important stuff, especially the math with money, has to happen on the server. The browser's job is just to make things look pretty and send your requests, but the server is the one wearing the pants, making all the critical decisions. That separation is what keeps every transaction honest and secure.
Okay, wow, we've covered a ton of ground here. So let's wrap this up by boiling it all down into a super simple checklist of the key things you absolutely need to remember.
All right, let's do a rapid-fire rundown. 1. Always check user input on the server. Don't trust the browser. 2. Use the right tool for the job. Get for looking, post for changing. 3. The golden rule. The server is always the source of truth for prices, no exceptions. 4. Don't forget that little line of middleware to read your form data. 5. A little bit of housekeeping. Clear the user's cart after they check out. It's just good practice. And finally, number 6. Keep your secrets secret. Things like database connection strings belong in a .env file, never checked into your code.
So there you have it. We've locked down the transaction by making sure the server is in charge of the money. But that's really just plugging one hole in the boat. It makes you think, doesn't it? What's the next security hole a developer needs to worry about in a system like this? What's the next weak link in the chain? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining me.